Welcome back guys to another video, and in this video we're going to be looking over Visual Studio Code for web development. We're going to be featuring some of the extensions that I use and some of which I would highly recommend for web developers, both new and experienced. Now the reason why I have this video, why I'm making this video actually, is because I was looking over some of my past videos and I realized that I might have been moving quite a bit fast, and I was highly using an extension called Emmet, which comes pre-installed with the Visual Studio Code, and perhaps it may have confused someone somewhere, so I decided to do a video about it just to explain what I was doing. So let's get to it with what is Visual Studio Code. So VS Code, as is popularly called, is a text editor developed by Microsoft, and it is available for free for anyone to download. It is very small, about 60 megabytes currently, version 1.51, very lightweight and very convenient for programming, and you can get it at this URL. Now the popular extensions that I use, most people actually that I've seen, one is called Emmet, and it provides intelligent code completions where you can do shortcuts and it automatically completes the code for you. Now Emmet comes pre-installed with Visual Studio Code, but if you don't have it, you can just get it from the VS Code marketplace. I'll show you where to get that, or you can go to their website right here and download it and install it. Prettier is another one, which is a code formatter. It formats on save actually, and it makes your code look readable and very manageable. Bracket pair colorizer, this is it's where sometimes you might be writing very big functions, so it's very easy to lose track of where a function begins and where it ends if all the brackets are the same color. So what this extension does is it adds a color coding for different brackets, so that you know that maybe if you're writing a function, it begins somewhere and ends somewhere. If you're writing another inline function somewhere, I'm going to show you all these extensions in use just so you understand what I'm saying. And if you want to look to read more about Prettier, you can go to their website, which is prettier.io. Other extensions that I use is called auto rename tag. This auto renames the start and end tags when one of them is changed. Live Sas Compiler, this compiles CSS code to CSS code, actually SCSS and Sass to CSS code, and it reloads the browser on save. It works well with Live Server. Now Live Server allows you to create a local server for development. It actually allows reload on save, and it's actually one which I've been using for my past projects if you want to see it in action. Now ES7, React, Redux, GraphQL, React native snippets. This if you want to generate functional components in React or class components, it's very easy with this extension, and maybe I might touch on it in this video or not. I might actually go into deeper into it when I'm making a React video, just so that you can see this in action. But this is also one of the extensions that I use. All of these are available in the VS Code marketplace. So let's get started, guys. So guys, what I did is I opened the code.visualstudio.com on my browser just to show you what to expect when you open it. Now when you go to this website, you can see the download button is already here, and you can see that I'm running a Linux system, so it's giving me the options for Debian and Red Hat. And if you're on a different system, what it will do is that it will recommend the best versions for your system. If you don't see it, all you have to do is come and click this icon right here, and it will provide a drop down for you, and you will select the system that you want. Now if you're on Linux, make sure to download for the Debian. I use Parrot Linux, so I'm going to be downloading the Debian. But if you're on another system like Fedora or Red Hat, you'll have to download the RPM one. Now if you don't see these options right here, all you have to do is scroll down and you'll get it right here for your system. Make sure you also choose the correct architecture for your system, if it's 64-bit or 32-bit system. I also opened the Emmet website right here, emmet.io. This is a website for Emmet. If you want to watch the demo, you can just click this video. It explains some of the things that Emmet does, and there are sponsors right here. And if you need to download it, all you need to do is click this download button. For Prettier, I also did the same thing. This is the Prettier website. If you want to download and install it, you just have to do this, or you can try it to see if it will be convenient for you. Prettier has, as you can see, it has integrations in many languages, as you can see them listed right here. And of course, with many editors: Atom, Sublime, Vim, Emacs, Espresso, Visual Studio Code, which is different from this, and Nova, as well as WebStorm. Now, if you look down here, you can see that Prettier is used by Facebook, React, Jest, Yarn, Babel, Storybook, Danger, Dropbox, as well as this is Webpack. Yeah. Okay, now that we have seen that, we can get to the practical aspect of it. Now guys, if you look, if you open Visual Studio Code once you've installed it, in case you don't have it, what you'll see is that on this side panel right here, you have certain options. Now this one is for your workspace, which, as you can see, I've created 2 folders into a main folder called Intro to VS Code. And when you click this last icon, this is the marketplace, or the extension, search extensions in the marketplace, as you can see. So I have all the extensions that I showed you. I have them installed right here: auto rename tag, bracket pair, Colorizer, ES7 React, live Sas Compiler, live server, and Prettier code formatter. Now, in case you are looking for any other extension, maybe like if you need an extension for Python, all you have to do is search, and it will give you all the extensions that are available for Python in the VS Code marketplace. Now, in order to do this, you need an internet connection, just to mention it. And just to go over a few settings here, once you have installed Prettier code formatter, you need to enable it as the default formatter for the VS Code. So all you need to do is come and copy and paste this line in your settings.json file, and it will be using Prettier for as your formatter, as your default formatter. Another thing that I'd like to look at is for the live Sas compiler, because this is the one that took me quite a bit to set up. Now, for live Sas compiler, you'll need these settings. Now, what this does is that because the Sas compiler actually compiles the Sas code into CSS code, it actually places it into a folder. So the folder is what is defined here in the save path, and mine I've set to a folder inside dist, inside the workplace, and inside dist into another folder called CSS. That's how I've set mine, with an extension to the name of minified CSS with format compressed so that it is actually minified. Let me see what else needs looking over. If you want to use single quotes, all you need to do is copy this for JSX in case you're using React, and for CSS and HTML, not HTML really, but JavaScript for the single quotes, which I do. And yeah, I think that's it. This is for that, no need for this. So you'll also need format on save. You also need format on save, so that when you save, Prettier will actually format the code for you automatically, and if you're using live server, then it will reload your browser for you automatically as well. So now we can get to the workplace right here. I made a folder called Intro to VS Code, and inside this folder I created a dist folder and an SCSS folder. I'll show you why. Now, inside the dist folder, I created an index.html just with comments. These comments are just to give me like a template of what I'll be working with. So we can begin by talking about Emmet. Now, if you've watched any of my past videos, which I'll link below, you'll notice that when I'm beginning any HTML project, I write an exclamation and then tab. What that does is it generates an HTML template for me, as you can see here. Now this is generated by Emmet, so this is the extension that I'm using called Emmet, which comes to be installed with VS Code, just to reiterate. Now once I do that, I can also do, like, if I want to add a link tag, I can do link and enter, which will give me this, where I can link my CSS file. Now for now, just for practicality purposes, I'm just going to call this a style.css, so that I can actually link it inside here, style.css. Now another thing about let me just change this to intro to VS Code. Another thing about Emmet is that it allows for you to write very quick code. I don't know if I should call it that, but for example, if I wanted to have a header with the class of header, then I would say header.header. And if I wanted to add an ID on the header, I would then say hashtag header. And once I press enter, you can see it has a class of header with an ID of header, and it added the header tag for me. Now just to talk about this auto rename tag, watch what happens when I change this tag. You can see even the end tag changes. You can see that if I wanted this to be a main class, it changes to a main class. If I wanted this to be a navbar. Now this isn't a very good explanation for you, so let me just remove this so you can see it. You can see what I actually mean. If I wanted a header, you can see it automatically places a header for me. If I wanted a nav, if I wanted a main, if I wanted a section, you can change that very easily without having to look for where the tag is placed, especially when you have very big projects. You can just come to one of the tags and just change it, and it will change automatically. Now what happens with Emmet is that if I have a header with a class of header, like that, inside the header I can place a navbar, and if I want to chain multiple elements together, all I have to do is put this is a greater than symbol, and I say inside the navbar I want an unordered list, and inside the unordered list I would like links, list items actually, and I want about 8 list items, and I want each of those list items to have an anchor tag. When I press enter or tab, what happens is, watch what happens. It creates a nav element, it creates a UL element, it creates 8 list items, and all of them have an anchor tag inside them. Now we can go even further by saying all the anchor tags should have a class of action, for example, and you can see all of them have a class of action. And that's just an example of how Emmet works. There are very many other ways to use Emmet. For example, if I have a section here with a class of showcase, and inside if I wanted to have a div with a class of maybe like showcase inner, I could write div dot showcase inner, showcase dash inner, and that brings that. Or I could just do dot showcase dash inner, and you can see it generates a div. That's what Emmet does. If you're inside an element, if you don't specify the name of the element before it, it will automatically make it a div. That's what Emmet does. For example, you can see this SD. You can have any class. It will give that class what you've just typed inside a div element. Now let's get to bracket pair colorizer, and for that I'm going to use JavaScript because it's the best way I can actually express it. So I'm going to create a script.js file, script.js file. Now I know you can link this up here. And set a defer attribute on it, so that it's the last to load. It only loads once the entire website has loaded. But I don't like doing that because it's just a matter of preference, and I prefer to have all my script tags at the end because that way it's just more manageable for me. and that's how I prefer it to be. So let's head over to the script.js tag just to make sure I've okay. And let's say if you had a function called what can I call it, greeting, you can see that the first bracket right inside here has a color of yellow, as well as these curly braces, they also have a yellow. Now if I had something like if I had an array inside here, let's say an array of greetings, let's just call it that for the sake of learning. If I had an array of greetings, you can see the brackets will change color. They'll change color. If I want to have objects inside the array, I can now say this. You can see the brackets are no longer yellow now, they're blue. And if I say maybe name, I've forgotten how to write objects, really. If I had name, and I'll say my name right there, Sankara. If I had date of birth, I would say April, like that. For example, just for example, you can see that this has a color of yellow. And if you have so many, let me just copy this down to explain my point. Let me add that just so that it doesn't give me errors. If I have this, just for example, as you can see in APIs, tracking this down can be a sort of an issue if all of them have the same color, you know. So what happens is it color codes them. That's the best I can put it. It color codes the brackets. You can see that this is the first bracket, which is actually the last down here. But once you see it has a color of yellow, you can automatically see that it begins here. And once you click this, you can see that it traces a line for you, and it puts it right at the end where the closing bracket is. If we are looking at this bracket right here, you can see it has a line right to the end where the bracket ends. And for this, of course, you can see it's just down here like this, like this, like this. Now that's for bracket pair colorizer. And when I start doing big projects, or bigger projects I should say, you'll see how practical this is, just how practical this is. Now the next I would look at is let me touch on live server first. Let me touch on live server, and then I'll show you what Prettier does as well when we're doing live Sas Compiler. So live server, once you have installed this, all you have to do is come and right click, and you'll find an option like this, open with live server, or you can use the command Alt L Alt O on Linux. And to stop live server, you can just do this. As well, you can come to your workspace and right click on the HTML file, and you say open with live server. Now you can see this is right there. Let me place them side by side. Okay. Let me just put some text inside here just to see it. Oh, another thing about Emmet is you can generate Lorem Ipsum, which is just dummy text, by saying Lorem and placing the number that you want. So for example, if I wanted 200 words, just press enter, it will generate 200 words of Lorem Ipsum for me. You can see, very handy, just to see this in action. Okay, but let me reduce this text, it's too much. Let me just put it there, which is okay. And then say, as you can see, if I just deleted it, and it saved right here, and it reloaded the browser for me, so I don't have to keep reloading it manually. If I wanted to say, if I wanted a div with the class of card, and I say VS Code is cool, watch it as it appears on the browser right there. You can see VS Code is cool right there. That is the live server, and pretty much that's all we use it for. Now the reason why this works is because when you're in development, what it does is it will inject a script for you. Where is it? Right here, code injected by live server. it injects a script for you that allows you to, you know, to work with the auto reload on. Now let's get to live Sas compile, where things might get just a bit tricky. The reason being, you know, it's Sas. Okay, so I'm going to just delete this file, delete it, and I'm going to rename this to minify.css, and I'm going to place it inside a CSS folder. You'll see why in a minute. And then I'm going to go into the SCSS file, and I'm going to create a file called style.scss. It's SCSS, not CSS. Now the reason why is because Sass has an extension of SCSS, or Sass actually, or SASS, but I'm going to be using SCSS. Now once you have installed, once you have this extension installed, live Sas compiler, you will see this prompt right here, live compilation of Sass or CSS to CSS. Now what happens is, I can now target and say, maybe for the body I want a background color of red. Now if you don't have this enabled yet, nothing will happen. But let me just open this and watch inside the dist folder, because once I click this, it will compile this code that I have here, and it will create a CSS file inside the dist folder as I had defined in my settings. And then once it does that, as you can see, I linked my style.minify.css right here. Now the HTML will be looking for this file inside the CSS folder that will be created right here. So let me just click watch Sass and watch right there. You see it creates a CSS folder. If you open that CSS folder, you'll see two files right here, a map file and the CSS file. This will be your main CSS file, and once you click it, you'll see this is the minified version of CSS. Now if I were to save this file, what Prettier will do is it would rearrange how this file looks, just to put it bluntly, and watch what happens, just like that. But you know, you won't be dealing with this file much. Because you know, you'll be writing your main files inside the SCSS folder. Now once I click this, you also saw that this terminal opened up. Now what happens in this terminal is that every time I save this file, it will compile again. Watch, you see it compiles again. Let me just make it bigger, just so you can see it compiles again. Push it up a bit, it will compile again and take it to the bottom like that. Another thing about why this tool is very handy is because if I have an error, for example, if I were to display this as flex, alignment type center, just for content center, if I had an error inside here, you would see that this would say error, and watch, it says error. And this is very handy because it also shows you where the error is, and you can see compilation error, invalid CSS, justify content expected this. And once you can see that, you can see that you just missed a semicolon right there, and once you save it again, it will say success like that, and it will generate your CSS code for you. Now I chose this display flex deliberately because another feature for live Sas compiler is that it will compile your code and it will generate CSS code that is actually compatible with other browsers. Now the reason why I chose this is because Microsoft Edge doesn't understand display flex, and maybe perhaps Mozilla doesn't also understand display flex. But if you come back here and check your minified CSS, let me just save it to format it. Let me close this sidebar. You see that it has display flex right there, alignment type center there, and justify content. But it also has these others which work on I think this works on WebKit browsers, this works in Microsoft browsers, you know, and it generates cross-browser compatibility. It's actually very handy if you're building a website where cross-browser compatibility is a very big deal, especially when using one of these new technologies like Flex and Flexbox and Grid. Just to add, let me just change this to display or rather let me just go inside a card and say display grid, and grid template columns, let me say repeat 3, one fractional each. Watch what happens in the CSS file. Now I can see there are errors here. The reason why there are errors is because you see, for I can say the technology is still behind for these browsers, but you know, it still works. And this shouldn't worry you very much because you won't be dealing with this file much. The only place you should worry about is if you have errors in your SCSS file. You can see now, instead of just display grid, we say it has display ms grid columns, one fraction 3, repeat 3 times, and it's very handy. It's very handy if you need cross-browser compatibility. Now you can just close that and close that. And I want to show you another feature of SCSS that is very handy, or I might cover that in a later video, just so that I can keep this to VS Code. And is there anything left? I think I've covered the most basic things. So yeah guys, those are all the extensions that I use. In case of anything, if you don't understand anywhere, you can just leave a comment for me in the description. And yeah, remember to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video when we are dealing with SCSS and perhaps React. Thank you for watching.